Today we're going to react to a giant modular synthesizer. That's about it. Let's jump into it. What's up, peeps? This is Samuel from Audio Nerds, and today we have something amazing. A giant modular synth, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents and also a little bit about my experience with modular synths along the way, because I have a story of my own, starting with the Nord Modular G1. Better to say, the Nord Micro Modular, which was the first hardware synthesizer that I have ever used, which is a virtual analog modular synthesizer. Very different from what we will have a look at today. Today we're going to react to a giant modular synthesizer. That's about it. Let's jump into it. There we go.
Going? This is a spaceship from like a sci-fi movie. Like, look at this. Look at this thing.
Yeah, and this is also the danger with modular synthesizers, is that some people, not all obviously, those are tools and it always depends on how people use them. But ultimately, I knew people, for example, that had studios beneath me in the same building in Berlin, in my studio, that were actually addicted to buying modular synthesizers and didn't really produce much with them. One guy, for example, just had them running at all times in the background, making noises in the background. He found that very amusing, and fair enough. But it's a very expensive hobby. This guy in particular actually had that and was rather buying new modular synths instead of paying his debt. But let's watch more.
It feels super fun.
This is your instrument, yeah. What's a synth?
I think a synth broadly is any electronic music or just sound making device. If you're electronically producing a sound, that's a synth.
It's a synth.
So,
and then this is like the modular synth final boss. Yeah, here.
That wouldn't be really my definition of a synth. A synth obviously needs to have synthesis ability. So if there is no synthesis of any type, either subtractive or additive or otherwise, then it's not a synth. That means your Casio keyboard, the one from your son, it's not a synth. It's a music playback machine, and it does generate sound, but it does not offer the capability of synthesis. So just to clarify that for everybody, a synth offers synthesis. At least that is my definition of a synth.
A modular synth just means that you have modules that make it up. That means that you can customize it. So not just the usual synth parameters like pitch and...
Let me again jump in there. I hate to be a wisecrack, but a modular synth doesn't only, offer you to customize it. The difference is just very simple. One is a static architecture. Okay, it offers you a certain flow of sound from one internal module to another, even if it is a fixed synthesizer. Let's take, for example, the Serum. The Serum has a specific signal flow that it adheres to, and this signal flow cannot be changed. You cannot interchange, like different elements where the envelope goes or something like that. You can modulate with the envelope pretty much any parameter, but you cannot put it in a different place in the synthesis chain. And you can't do that with any other module inside of the synthesizer, for that matter. A modular synthesizer is completely free and can be rearranged, and often, you have to build patches from the beginning of the signal flow, so you actually need something that takes MIDI, and you need an amp, and you need envelopes and oscillators, etc. You can freely arrange them and interconnect them and change the signal flow in a more drastic manner than in a static environment. The benefit, obviously, of a static environment is that it can be designed to perfection. The benefit of a modular setup, obviously, is that it can be individualized to perfection, if you will. Let's watch a little bit more.
Tone, but you also want to be able to have it randomize notes, or there's so many options. It's basically like, what would you want an electronic instrument to be able to do? You can probably find the right module for it and pair it with the other modules of the other options that you want to have in your synth. You can have tiny ones. You can, it could be a 3-module synth. It could be I don't know how many I have here. Probably about 100.
Like here's one module.
There's one module.
You can buy all these different modules that do all these different things and then patch them together. How could you possibly make sense of this?
So the patch cables is another big thing. So for instance, the traditional synthesizer is an oscillator that makes a sound, like just a tone. And then you would patch another module, let's say that's controlling the pitch. So you'd patch up the pitch to the oscillator.
In a regular, like this thing?
Yeah, that has something controlling the pitch of the oscillator.
But it's
behind
not
the scenes.
Module.
Yeah, you don't get to change that connection because that's all underneath the faceplate.
Yeah.
But what you can do is obviously just change the pitch, because there's a pitch wheel modulator on the analog synth as well.
Guitar player. This kind of reminds me of like a guitar pedal board. You plug in your guitar, this is where you're getting your main signal, and then you go to distortion, reverb, and then it goes out. And then this is your distortion, reverb, and your guitar pedals, but you can change the order of them.
Yeah, so if you think of a guitar pedal board, you can change the order of what your pedals are in, and that changes the sound of the effects. With modular, not only are you doing it with audio, but you have what's called CV, or control voltage.
Yeah, okay, that's something that's way different here.
Control voltage is just a signal that's either low or high or anywhere in between, and it can be moving at any rate. The best way to think of it is like invisible hands. This is what modular people say. So if you have
it's basically just an electric signal that is used to control aspects of synthesizers, like for example pitch or VCF or elements of the VCA.
Let's say you're
Should we
playing
start
a guitar,
doing something?
right?
And so that we can show people?
So one thing about pulling out chords when you're dealing with a huge synth is just try and get the same color, and that just keeps them organized.
And I imagine you color code them as you're patching something in?
These cables are color coded by length. So that's just like, if you know where you want to patch something, you can guess the length of chord you want.
Unlike if you're building out a sound in an audio program, we're undoing your work here and you can't get it back.
No,
this patch is gone.
I recorded it out, and that's the only version of it that will ever exist.
That seems to be something really cool about modular synth, is that it is, fully synthetic, but there's a realness to it, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And that it's a one-off thing that you created and there's no getting it back.
I think that changes your mindset and your approach to it.
I like how these two have...
These are called stack cables. If you want to double up, send the same signal somewhere else, you can just plug it into that same patch cable rather than finding a splitter module.
These can be used for an audio signal and CV.
Yeah, audio is just a wave.
And
CV is just a slow wave. Well, CV could be any speed of wave, but when you're hearing a sound, it's just like the air vibrating super fast. When you're converting a real sound into a recording, all it's doing is changing that air vibration into a pattern of electricity.
Yeah, it's just the same thing. It's just voltage going up and down on these.
Yeah, exactly. The thing I was going to say about the invisible hands is let's say you have a synth and you're making it go wow, 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 and you want that wow, wow to happen. Instead of you having to turn the filter knob, wow, wow, you can just get a wave that goes up and down at that speed, and then plug that into the filter, and then it's wow.
What he's explaining is obviously modulation, and that is something that is entirely non-exclusive to modular synthesizers, but literally, is a part of any synthesizer.
Going on its own. VCO, which stands for voltage controlled oscillator.
Because it's analog, there's a physical thing that's vibrating in there?
Yeah, I don't actually know exactly how that works.
I don't really know how.
There is no physical thing inside there that is vibrating, but it's kind of cute. I'm sorry that I have to rip them so bad. I don't actually want to. I'm pretty sure that those are both good producers or whatever they are. I saw this guy before in some YouTube video, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, let's jump a little bit through the video.
Right, dialing in the size of that control voltage wave. And if I zero it out, then we don't hear that effect at all.
Okay, so right now, this guy is set up to just do this.
Yeah.
In CV.
Yeah.
And now basically those invisible hands are being applied through these two patches that are split to both the pitch
Yep.
of the oscillator as well as the volume of the oscillator.
So it's really like you're building music from the ground up.
Yeah, yeah.
Like from just a sound, you sculpt into it.
So if I unplug this,
Yeah.
then we get nothing.
Yeah, because it's controlling the volume and the pitch.
Changing the knobs. This is our invisible hands going. Yeah. This module looks really crazy, but it's simple. It just makes a pitch.
Modular ends up looking complicated because it gives you access to almost every possible parameter, where maybe a lot of
the owner of the synthesizer, he obviously knows a bit about synthesis and seems quite knowledgeable. This person, I quite frankly have the feeling that he knows little to nothing about synthesis, which is not a big deal, of course. I don't even know who he is or what he does. Maybe he's not even a musician. But probably he is. But you can see Scott Taylor guitars. So he's probably not from the synth field, which is fair enough, you know. Like, if you have your area of expertise, you can't know everything, obviously. And if he's a guitar aficionado, then he doesn't need to know about synthesis. But it's a bit funny to see, you know, the sounds that they make are a bit, until now, unimpressive. Yeah. But let's watch.
after the triggers, right? The envelope doesn't close fast enough, so the next note is sneaking through while it's still turning down the volume.
Yeah.
If I make
Okay, that is more interesting.
it short enough, we just get this sequence, right? Every quarter note, we get whatever note happens to be coming out there.
Okay, so this is the sequencer, and you have it set to where every quarter note in this sequence, you go to here.
Yeah.
That gives you an envelope, which is then going towards the volume.
Yep.
And this sequencer is changing the notes to be in a musical way, but it's only getting through because every quarter note, this is triggering
letting
it
you
in.
hear it at
All right,
volume. Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. So a fun thing to do is introduce a little probability where, let's say I turn some of these down to half. You always hear that one that's 100, and every once in a while some of the other ones come through.
Yeah.
And if we just, like, I love to do this, just randomly slide a few of the others to be lower, now you get a sequence that's like, there's noticeable parts to it that are going to be similar.
But I guess as long as you have that, maybe if we have every...
The awesome thing with modulars is that you can really play. That is the really, really cool thing with its hardware modular synthesizers specifically, because you can obviously use modular synthesizers in a digital format. But there, it's a real hands-on process, and I really like to put my hands on stuff. So that is a definite plus when it comes to modular synthesizers.
Fourth, then we at least have a constant, because we know that there's a 100% probability of the quarter notes.
Yeah.
Wow, I see how this can get like... Okay, so if I wanted to do every eighth note, I would bring the probability of all these
every
up.
other one. Yeah.
And then...
Make sure that one's fully 100, yeah.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And then if I bring this up, the fall knob...
Yeah, that's the decay of the envelope, so how long it takes to turn the volume back down.
And then I can move the key of everything. That is satisfying. The butterfly effect starts here, kind of.
Yeah, he seems like a well-trained musician that just explores the capabilities of synthesizers, which is kind of neat, cute.
And you could also make it random to where it's giving you random notes in that key.
Yeah. Put this through another VCA. Yeah, you're hearing just the springs going, and it's just going to be like clicks, I think.
I can't deny it. Watching this huge beast of a modular synthesizer makes hungry for modular synthesis. But let me tell you a bit about my own story with modular synthesis. I bought the not modular G1, a synthesizer that was not using USB implementation. It only had freaking MIDI in and out, and two types, PC in and PC out, and MIDI in and MIDI out. One for MIDI and one for software communication. This synthesizer was from 1997 and is truly legendary and highly capable, but also kind of not fun to implement in a modern setup. So that was my first experience with that, and I can tell you that it was overwhelmingly complicated. What I can recommend to anyone who wants to start out with that, although I am not an owner of a rack myself, but take it slow, have a good first setup with some really solid modules that do not necessarily have to be analog. There are many digital plugins that are amazing, that also do a fantastic job and have crazy good timbers. And then slowly build your way up. Even if you would be, let's say you're a rich person and just say, I'm going to invest 500,000 or 100,000 or 50,000, whatever the number is, into modular modules, then the danger is that you don't really know your stuff, and it would be very overwhelming to work yourself through that. If you only have a limited setup and then work your way up from there, I think that's the way to go, and then really know your modules. Like, being limited is not necessarily a bad thing in all cases, right? There are like absolutely times when limitations enhance creative output and enhance the learning experience as well, because you learn the things that you have very well instead of having an infinite amount of choices and therefore not really knowing those things that you are using very well. Bruce Lee once said, I hope I'm gonna get that right, I do not fear the man who trains 1,000 kicks, I fear the man who trains a kick 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times or whatever. So repetition and limitation can be a good thing in terms of learning synthesis. This guy is very experienced, and the other guy also seems to be a fairly experienced musician that is new to the concepts of synthesis, and therefore it's quite neat to see because he knows about the concepts behind it. That those are shared concepts. That's why they can talk about it in music theoretical terms, like 1/8 and so forth. And he understands that. He understands music theory. Just from the few words that I heard him talk, the guitar guy I'm talking about. And the other guy is seemingly a very, very, very well-experienced creative and producer. I don't know exactly what he's doing, but when you hear him talk, you really hear that he knows his shit, and that it's not just like a fancy thing that he has standing around in his studio, which I knew people in my time or in the past that for whatever reason had a lot of money and then stacked up their studio with a wall of modular synths, just like that, modules, and didn't understand even one module of those very well, and it was more or less like a super expensive decoration for his studio for the most part. Sometimes some producer came to the studio that was experienced enough to actually fully understand this wall of modules. There's actually photographs of me in front of that wall of modules, and that is maybe around a similar size of this huge setup that was in Switzerland. Let's watch this hump here. Oh yeah, he's showing off different examples of patches. Sounds actually amazing. The uniqueness of modular sound is definitely such a huge plus. There is no question about it. It's just fantastic how unique your stuff will sound if you use it real well. The danger is some people end up not producing a lot and just playing around. But this doesn't count for all people, so you know.
Different kinds of sounds you want to get out of this.
This patch sounded incredible, the one before. This one. It's really cool to get those crazy atonal FX structures out of a synth, of course. But quite frankly, this musical stuff is harder to achieve in general, and with such a machine, I'd say. Great video, great setup, really great setup, really interesting to see also how the guy is exploring from a different perspective. It happened to me many times in my life that I met musicians that were classically educated, went through a classical musical education, and came from a complete different angle of music creation. And then learned those concepts. Like some of them have been my students. One jazz theory student and instrumentalist and singer, for example, was a student in Berlin, and we actually ended up writing stuff together, and he became a teacher on one of my workshops. But that was super interesting because you could see, you know, like a fresh perspective from a different angle of creation, which is cool.
Another random signal control the speed of that wave.
I love when reverb has a, it's like called sway maybe, like the reverb gets lower in pitch as it goes away.
Oh, yeah.
That's really cool, and I'm hearing that in there.
I'm gonna turn everything else back on, and we'll hear that reverb occasionally coming in.
I can really see how you could just spend hours and hours doing this, of course.
Yeah, it's the enjoyment
that patch also sounds amazing.
Of exploring and discovering, more so than just like, I want to finish a track, you know?
He said it himself, that's the danger, basically. The danger is that you are just exploring and not producing. I saw that many times. It's a non-exclusive thing, as said, but it can happen. And basically, in my opinion, like if you're doing that, you should be almost constantly hitting the record button and just record it and maybe delete a bunch of it afterwards if there is, you know, garbage material inside. But there's such a danger of, you're having this amazing moment and it's fleeting because you just like you change a couple of things and then like you can't return, and you know, just leave it on record would be my suggestion in this case.
Oh, will this change the tempo of the sequence?
Yeah.
That is one happy musician face. It really is cute. His reaction is really cute.
Could I use this to play different noises?
Yeah, but what type of noises?
Just like a drum. Give me a snare. Turn off everything except for what you're working on. How do I do that?
All these on there. That'll do that. Everything you do into the sequence, so as soon as you stop touching it, it'll keep looping.
Oh, really?
16th notes. Last bar.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa. What a cool video. Really awesome. It just gets better as you get along, and as you get deeper into the video, the better it gets. It really wants me to make my own modular synthesizer, but I have other priorities at the moment and did quite a bit of business investments lately. So for me, it's not going to happen. I still have the Neutron. Unfortunately, the electricity plug needs to be exchanged, but I have some analog modular capabilities over there, which are of course very limited, but I am ultimately also a big fan of synthesizers that have a fixed architecture like the Virus TI. Wow, that video was sort of a journey, really cool, and respect for the guy who built the modular synth, because he seems to really know what he's doing, and also respect to the other guy. It looks super, super cute how he's like exploring the capabilities of a modular synthesizer for the first time with the back catalog of musical knowledge that he apparently brings to the table. So this is quite cool. And that's about it. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to see more of those type of videos, then let me know. Also, suggestions are welcome. Just drop them down in the comment section below. You can even drop a link down below. Support us by hitting the subscribe button or getting our merchandise. This is the prototype t-shirt. Unfortunately, that's not the final, and the final version has actually adjusted logo color. So like on a blue shirt, you would have also like blue accents in the logo, and this logo would only go to the black shirts. However, you can already buy the finalized version with the blue accent logo on our website, audionerds.net/shop. You can head over there. A lot of exciting content is getting produced for that website, as well as learning products, free products, downloads, presets, samples, etc. So definitely, if you want to check that out, then feel free to do so. Also head over to our social media, of course, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have all that good stuff, and we would love to welcome you there in our community of creatives and music producers. We also have a Discord, and our Discord has a lot of cool perks, as for example our sample exchange, where we freely exchange samples of our work. It's a great way of getting new samples that are unique from real other people. And of course, they are royalty free if you post them there. So definitely check all of that stuff out. That will be in the links in the description. Thank you so much for watching and for your ongoing support. Much love from the Paralab studio, and I see you guys in the next one. Peace out.